So good evening, everybody out there. Welcome to the October 2024 Artist Salon with our guest artist, Cherry Archer tonight. My name is Kathy Tycholis. I am the Richmond Art Gallery's Education and Public Programs Coordinator, and I'm here to host your program today and moderate the questions. First, on behalf of the Richmond Art Gallery Association, I would like to welcome you to this program, which is hosted by the Richmond Art Gallery, which is located on the traditional and ancestral lands of the Hunkaminam-speaking peoples, which are the nations that live along the Fraser River Delta, including the Musqueam. And I would like to thank you all out there from wherever you are zooming in from to join us today and supporting the Richmond Art Gallery's programming. In a few moments, I will welcome our guest artist presenter, Cherry Archer, who will share a visual presentation of her works, followed by some time for Q&A with all of you. But before we begin, just a few housekeeping notes about the program and tonight's session. So for those of you who are new to the Artist Salon, this is a monthly series that is hosted usually on the last Wednesday of the month, although this month I wanted to avoid Halloween, so we're a little bit earlier. It's hosted from February to November. The goal of the program is to offer visual artists a mix of professional development, tips and advice, along with artists' personal stories and experiences to help strengthen and build our artist community while encouraging the artists out there to keep on making and growing in your art practice. The Artist Salon does also exist as a private Facebook group, which provides resources for artists mainly in the Lower Mainland for things such as artist calls and exhibitions, residencies, professional development opportunities, local arts events, and also does serve as a space for you, our local arts community out there. So please use it to connect with each other and to promote your own openings and exhibitions. So I welcome you to join the Facebook group. And there is info, as you can see, posted in the chat on that. And if not, you can always look at our Richmond Art Gallery website for more information about that and about the Artist Salon as well. I would like to introduce Cherry Archer, who is also currently exhibiting a few works on the Canada Line skytrain in Richmond, and is here to talk about her art practice, looking how to incorporate ecological sustainability within her practice, and also share her experiences of working with Richmond Public Art Program to get her recent artworks installed. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, Cherry. I need to also mention, of course, tonight's session is sponsored by the Richmond Public Art Program. So thank you so much to the public art team out there for supporting the program and sponsoring tonight's session. And of course, recommending Cherry to me, which was great, a nice connection. So I'm going to quickly introduce Cherry via a short bio, and then I will let her share her presentation and I will get out of the way. So Cherry Archer is a Vancouver-based visual artist. She studied photography at Focal Point, Vancouver, and fashion design at Sheridan College, Oakville, Ontario. She is known for her botanical ice tile photography. Informed by ecopsychology, Cherry Archer's work explores humanity's relationship with nature, addressing themes of global warming, sustainability, biophilia, and the importance of being present in the moment. Her ongoing Botanical Ice Tile series has garnered recognition through exhibitions in art galleries across Metro Vancouver and is currently featured as public art at Capstan and Aberdeen SkyTrain stations in Richmond, BC, and in Ottawa, Ontario. Her photography has been included in Human, the 10th issue of the internationally renowned Prix Pictet photobook, celebrating the intersection of sustainability and photography, and in 2022, the botanical issue of Photo Ed magazine. So welcome, Cherry. I am so happy to have you here. I'm looking forward to this discussion. I will disappear during your presentation, and then I will come back for the Q&A at the end of tonight's session. So, and again, feel free to send in your questions at any time throughout. So welcome, Cherry, and you can take it away.
Thank you so much. It was a lovely entry. I'm just going to start sharing a screen straight away, okay? Okay. So thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. I am really honored that you would consider spending your evening with me and learning about my art practice. As Kathy said, I am um, a local artist based in Vancouver, and my artwork encourages sustainability, and it also deals with the relationship between humanity and nature. I'm based in Vancouver, but I'm actually a transplant from Ontario. Um, my parents are Trinidadians, and the way that our family ended up in Canada was that my father wanted to go to university here. By the time I was born, he was
Sherry,
studying at McMaster, so I was born in
Can I
Hamilton.
just interrupt for a minute?
Yes.
Can you minimize the stop sharing
Oh,
button?
yes.
It's covering some
Uh,
of your images.
okay,
Thank
there you
you.
go. Okay. Yes, so my dad was at university at McMaster, so I was born in Hamilton, and then later on we settled in Niagara Falls, and that's where we were all raised. It was me and two other children. Um, if to describe myself as a kid, I was very curious. I was definitely an active child, full on in sports. I was curious. We had a yard, and I would always be found preferably outside, running around, catching butterflies, looking at insects, taking apart plants, and just really communing with the outdoors. Despite being so active, I had no problem with focusing on drawing and creating things. I really enjoyed any artistic endeavor. Um, as I got older, I learned to sew and design clothing. And by the time that I was getting ready to finish high school, there was that traditional talk that you have, like, what do you want to do with your parents saying to you? And I said, I want to go to fashion design school. So when my father was looking at our programs, he was mentioning that none of the places that I wanted to go had a very solid business background. And if I wanted to get into business, obviously important. So we decided that I'd go to Brock University first. So I did a 4 year program in 3 years, graduated with an honors degree in business, and then followed that with a move to Oakville, where I went to school at Sheridan College for a couple of years. Turned out to be a very good choice because after working for a little bit in other fashion places, I launched my own hat design company, and that was it was a growing endeavor, and I was very proud of it. Worked so hard, but I also found it extremely rewarding, and I think it's because I was creating something of my own, and I was getting good response from it. Um, a couple of years, about 3 years into it, Canada started experiencing a recession, and although I was still in the growth stage, I noticed a lot of the people that I was selling to were saying, "Oh, so sales are slowing." Everyone seems to say that we're going to a recession, so I had to really reevaluate at that point because I was moving towards opening a store, and I thought, you know what? I've always wanted to travel. I have some money. Maybe this is the time to do so. So I took off to Europe and Asia, and what was supposed to be um, a 10-month vacation or exploratory trip turned into 12 years. Um, it was a very formatory experience, and it's something that I wouldn't change for the world. I found that I traded in my knowledge of being in very manicured places like gardens and parks to exploring wilderness and being exposed to the forest in Finland and the mountains in Switzerland. I lived in a ski resort for some time. My first camping experiences were in Europe. I got involved with mountaineering. I also got a lot of knowledge about foraging. Both Finland and Switzerland, which were my main bases, um, have a very long history in foraging. So I learned about the mushrooms and the various plants, whether they be medicinal or like food-based, berries. Um, it was really an amazing time, and I remember this one time going to a restaurant. It was just like a small hole in the wall sort of thing run by a couple, and the man had made this liqueur from these local plants, and I was just fascinated that you just go and make a liqueur from something you picked out in the wild. And he was like, "Oh yeah, and if you take this and you rub it, it helps with bruises and everything." And was pretty much hooked. I'm like, okay, what is this, and why don't I know anything about this? But it's just that I wasn't exposed to that sort of nature when I was a kid, so and that sort of interaction with nature. So I learned more about biophilia and ecopsychology and realized that that's what I had been experiencing all along, and all the positive effects that nature was having on me were really important to me. Along this same time, photography came into the picture, so to speak. Um, I had quite a few friends who were very talented photographers. We collaborated on projects, and they taught me how to use the camera. And I started to become enamored with the idea of using photography as a creative medium. Um, so much so that by 2005, when I decided to move back to Canada and come to Vancouver, I bought my first digital camera because they were sort of coming out at that time. And then soon after, I purchased my first DSLR, which is a Nikon. That's not my camera in the picture, but I do shoot with a Nikon. I still have the same one that I initially bought. And I pursued nighttime courses at Focal Point, as well as Vancouver photo workshops. Um, I worked a bit in my own jobs in photography, but that really paled in comparison to being able to embark on artistic practices, and my own projects just really held my attention a lot more. So I was constantly doing things that I'm going to talk about this particular project here because it relates directly into what I'm doing now. So in 2016 and early 2017, for about a year, I would go out every day and photograph mostly nature and areas that I saw with a lot of texture. And then I would digitally manipulate the image to turn it into a negative. And this is what you see here. So that led me to being out in the winter of 2017. And maybe some of you might remember this incident where everything froze for about a couple of weeks. We had a big salt shortage. There wasn't like salt in the stores to put on the road, and people were skating out at Trout Lake. Of course, I spent time there, but I also went to Stanley Park where I was photographing ponds and other little bodies of water. And I noticed that the plants that were suspended in the ice were really catching my eye. I was loving and was mesmerized by the way they were suspended, and the light was refracting through the ice, and the bubbles and everything just caught my eye. These are the photos I took of the ice at the time, but it's because it changed into negatives. I don't have the originals anymore. It doesn't really do the idea justice, but that is essentially where the seed of an idea of this came to me. So, fast forward to 2020, when I had quite a bit of time on my hands because of the pandemic. In the late summer, I bought my first bouquet of flowers and started to freeze them and experiment with how to capture whatever it was that I was trying to capture. Um, it was a mess. It was definitely a mess because there's ice melting all over the place, and it was slippery and hard to hold. And at some points, I was trying to float it over water and capture it that way, or prop it up and put like blanket or towels around it. Um, so it took a little bit of while to hit my stride, but eventually I figured out how I wanted to shoot it and a drier way to shoot it, how I wanted to look. Um, so it but about a year later, I was producing images like this. And what you see here is a combination of all the things that I enjoy doing. I would be out in nature, communing with it, growing plants or foraging. Then I would bring them home and arrange them, freeze them in water in various layers. So usually, a really fast freeze would be, a little over 24 hours, but usually more like 48 because I'd allow things to freeze fully, and then I put another layer of plant, and sometimes I drain out some of the water to encourage larger bubbles. Um, I would play around with colored light using gels. So basically, a gel is anything that you can shine light through and it's going to color the light, and worked with directionality of light. And then I would photograph it, print it big. I don't know if I just mentioned, but I would crop it in camera so that you couldn't see the edges of it. And I was really enjoying my results. So much so that I had a little video, but we couldn't get this to work. So I'm just going to move on to the next one. Excuse me. Okay, to resume. So at the same time that I was working on my technique and trying to figure out how I wanted the images to look, I was also exploring themes and what was coming to the forefront when I was doing this. So there was one, biophilia and our innate connection to nature, and then also being in the moment. And I found that being in the moment and watching what was happening and how things grow and the cycle of plants and what you can find at certain times of the year, um, the different formations of the plant as it matures and turns and withers, and that help me to respect plants more and get to know them more, and that in turn it encourage sustainability. And that's what I look to do in my art practice, is to encourage people to commune with nature, to maybe step away from the busyness of everything and to appreciate it, and then to in turn think about the positiveness that they're getting from nature, and to then concern themselves with how to encourage to sustain it and to improve our kind of dire situation that we're in now ecologically. um, each of my images is an attempt to depict a feeling or an experience that I've had or a memory. So I just want to talk maybe about a few images and show you examples of what I've done. So these first two are examples of a little series that I did of botanical ice tiles that talked about my experience as a child. So this one, Timorous 889, was shot inspired by my yard as a child in the summertime and that sort of carefree feeling and that sun kissed feeling that you get. Um, these are like coneflowers, bachelor buttons, cornflowers rather, and bachelor buttons, which grew beside our porch. We had several maple trees, so these are maple helicopters, and even bittersweet nightshade that grew as weeds by the garden. So all of these kind of come together to me to represent childhood and like the wonder and the carefreeness of being in the summertime on school vacation. You have the daytime and then you have the nighttime. Amid nocturnal tall grasses, 377 is that feeling of laying in the grass when you're a child and it's dewy and the light is coming through from either the moon or the porch and it's filtering down to the plants. And because you're small, you can just have like a very unique point of view of things. Maybe not something that an adult would do, but definitely that's where you could find me as a child doing these sort of things. And then another one would be Daybreak 16. So, as I said, I've traveled through Asia and through the Amazon, and I was just very much taken with the wall of green that you see in the jungle. Like it's this impenetrable layer of all these shades of leaves and green and vine. And I thought, let me see how I could try to depict this and portray this emotion. So this would be at daybreak when the rays of light are just slicing down through the forest or the jungle first thing in the morning. Mm. So once I finished, like got to a certain level where I thought I would like to start showing my work, um, I realized that although I had been to many galleries through my life, I really didn't know much about them, which led me to go down this rabbit hole of trying to figure out the different types of galleries and where I wanted to place myself, or at least try to place myself um, in the whole scheme of things. And um, just how to navigate the whole thing. So I the first show that I had, these are all group shows, by the way. The first experience I had was at Atelier 818 with Kyla Bork. She runs this wonderful little gallery out of her home, and what started as a project during the pandemic, which was just ideal because people weren't going out so much. But she had this beautiful, intimate um, grouping of artists that she would maybe have go on for 2 or 3 months and then change the show. And I was fortunate enough to be invited into this show. Um, Also in 2021, and mind you, I'm starting this at the end of 2022. So about a year later, I answered an art call from Crystal Parabou. She was looking to showcase artists of the Caribbean diaspora at Seymour Art Gallery in a group show called Roots Revealed. And that was also an excellent experience. In fact, I know that I've heard of bad experiences, but all of these have been nothing but the most supportive, uplifting, easy, fun, productive experiences that I've had with the galleries that I've worked with. So, yes, Seymour Art Gallery in 2021. I know there isn't anything represented in 2022, but we'll come back to that. Um, um, then I guess people started recommending me because I've been working with the theme of sustainability. So in 2023, I was invited to join two sustainability themed art exhibits, group shows. One from Act Art Gallery in Maple Ridge, and then the second one was Precipice. It was run by CPAWS, which is the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society, and they hired Rachel Ash to curate a fantastic group show around the themes of sustainability and getting the public engaged with taking care of nature. In 2024, I started the year off at the Portal Pop-Up Gallery, which is in Gastown. Uh, a different sort of gallery. It's two large windows, and they'll sometimes have two or one artist will get both windows, but a lot of exposure. And it allowed me to meet some new artists, and it was again a lovely experience. And then later in the year, Rachel Ash, who was involved with Precipice, had seen an ad on Instagram from Fjallraven, and there was the store manager, who's also an artist, had wanted to do a group show. And Fjallraven is it's a Scandinavian outdoor gear and clothing company. So they're all about preserving nature. And so everyone that was involved with this show was giving their take on how they commune with nature. So if anybody is interested, or that is their kind of what they do with their art thing, I believe that Sean, who runs that, and intends to continue and do other iterations of this theme. So you might want to look into that, or you can reach out to me and I could put you in touch with him for the next show. Um, so that was like an overview of galleries and group shows that I have done. In 2022, I saw the art call from the city of Richmond about the number 3 Art Road columns. And I thought, with what I'm trying to do with my work, I'd like it to be more outward reaching, and I want it to be seen by and affect people who wouldn't necessarily find themselves in a gallery. So I thought that this was a fantastic opportunity. I applied, and I was fortunate enough to get my images in. And for those of you who don't know, it's at the backside of Lansdowne Station. There are a couple of columns there, and they are back illuminated. And each artist that would be accepted into this gets the opportunity to showcase 4 of their images around the column. So this was a fantastic learning experience for me because, one, it allowed me to work in a large scale. I've often wanted to work with light boxes, but they are so crazy expensive. So it was nice to have this opportunity to work with a large light box just to see how my work would look with that. And I got a lot of positive response for that. So we'll see if I can't make something like this happen again in the future. Um, what else to say? I learned what to think about when you are showcasing public art. They said, you know, try to keep like patterns going everywhere because flat surfaces without anything underneath it is just like a solid color of a solid band of color is a magnet for graffiti. So that was good to take in mind. Also, these aren't the images that I submitted. My images were a bit darker, and it was recommended to me that to choose something a little bit lighter because they would show less reflection. It would be easier to see the images. So I mean, that was all a great learning experience working with a different material because up till then I had strictly printed on paper. So it was cool to see like how I had to adjust my editing for the PVC for this. And also learning or teaching myself how the files needed to be formatted to work with the new printer I had to work with. So um, all in all, it was an amazing experience. Biljana Vilkova is the overseer of this, and she was just so wonderful and supportive. Yeah, I was very fortunate, I feel, to be involved with this. At the same time that I was applying for that, um, I had I was reading something and came across the existence of the Black Art Center in Surrey, and they had something where they were inviting Black artists to join their directory, and I thought, oh, this would be a great opportunity to meet and network with local Black artists. So I put my resume in and like website and all that. And a number of weeks later, they were contacting me saying, "Hey, we have this project going on with PCI. They are a developer building at King George Hub in Surrey. Um, we've seen your work, and are you interested in providing images as a hoarding around the building?" And of course, the answer was like, yes, absolutely interested in this. Um, I had a number of images that were already shot, so I used those, but I also shot some specifically for this because they wanted to showcase plants that grew in the area. And when I went to do the site visit, the woman that was taking me on the tour grew up in that area, and she's talking about the various plants. I mean, like you could see a real pride of like, yeah, I used to walk by here, and this used to be this, and that used to grow, and I used to walk through these areas. And like I thought, it would be really such a nice gift that to me to be able to provide something like that to that area where it would like have some sort of connection to the people who grew up there. So those images probably about 6 months to get them installed, or more like 4 months. Sorry, 4 months to get them installed, and they were there until the building was complete. It was also a new opportunity to work with a PVC mesh. So again, I had to edit a little bit differently. Like the way I had it, everything was a little bit too dark, so I had to lighten everything for this material. That just shows you like what they look. They're held up with zip ties, and yeah, so that was pretty cool. And also pretty cool is that when the project was nearly finished being built, they asked for some of these images to be so that they can use them in some of their interior. So the plant life has now gone inside and in a more permanent way inside the building. Um, this takes me to Aberdeen SkyTrain Station in 2024. Um, this is a little bit of a different project using the same method that I use for the rest of my botanical ice tiles. About 6 months prior to applying for this, I know, for some reason, I was thinking about like how difficult it would have been for my parents when they first moved to Canada and when they had us children, how it would be difficult and how they managed to impart um, the culture of being Trinidadian when we didn't have that frame of reference as children. And we were hold on, I just need a little drink of water. Excuse me. Um, My father was like the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Cultural Association in St. Catharines, near where we grew up. So, I mean, there was always like contact to the heritage, but I thought like even more on a daily basis, there were things like food, like he would cook and they would cook various things that were specific to Trinidad or talk about stories of when they were kids. And I just thought, oh, that this is an interesting way to approach this. How could I use my ice tiles to convey these feelings and stories? So on the left, I did like I shot maybe over a month a series, and when I saw the art call, I thought this would be relatable. So on the left, it is citrus and various types of citrus, and this is a story about after my mother died, being very soon afterwards in Trinidad with my grandmother, and how she was giving me an orange that she plucked from her garden, and how it was the first time that I experienced like a freshly plucked orange. And it's about love and generations and family and taking care of each other and grief and sensation. So there's like a lot of emotions and stories in my mind tied up to this image. Um, on the right is Reverie 25, also about cooking. So when my mom would teach me to cook, it just seemed like every single recipe started with peeling onions and chopping them up. So this is a collection of different onion peels and membranes in there to p- to just kind of capture a memory and a feel, and that's why I call it reverie. Just this a fond sort of seems like a dream at this point. Uh, these will be up for still, I think, a couple of years, and again, a fantastic experience to take part in this. The images are flanking the entrance of the Aberdeen SkyTrain station. If you ever happen to be there, um, and, yeah, I've had it's been really heartwarming to have people reach out to me and say, "Oh," like this one woman was talking about the citrus, and she's like, "Yes, we have those kind of citrus in my country too, and I really feel warmly about that image. I really enjoyed it when I read the documentation of what you wrote. I thought, yeah, that I can relate to that." So, I feel great about, being able to touch the general public. I don't know if she would have made her way or ever seen my art in other like in a gallery setting, but just walking by happened to notice it and felt the need to reach out and say how she felt about it. It was very heartwarming to me. Okay, so what's next? Well, quite a few things are next. Um, I wish I could show you pictures, but it's not quite installed yet, so I don't think I should do that. However, if you are traveling along Canada Line, there's a new SkyTrain station called Capstan Station. It's between Brighouse and Aberdeen, and it's not open yet. But I am part of the Richmond artist roster, which means that when you apply for it, if you are able to get in, you are on a short list for the next 3 years. And if there is something suitable that your work might apply to, they will reach out and, like I said, you're shortlisted. So they'll ask you, are you interested in doing this? Of course, yes. Um, and would you please provide us some artwork for this? So this piece will be a wrap for a utility box, and I made these pieces, the images for this specifically for this site. So I spent a number of different days walking from Aberdeen Station underneath the sky train over to Capstan Station, then across Capstan Way, and then along the banks of the Fraser. And I did this circuit several times on several different days just to take in things like color and plants and the feel of the plant life growing in this area. And then I use those to make botanical ice tiles that I hope fit in with the station's artwork and structure. And also, I have my first solo show coming up. So that is like in a very short time from now, basically next week. So November 2nd, it will be the opening reception at the Monica Reyes Gallery. My work will be there for 3 weeks. And it's made possible by a BC Arts Council, BC Arts Council grant, um, which I'm very thankful for because there's no way that I would have been able to make it happen in this sort of way without that. So, yeah, I'm really thankful for that. It's enabled me to do my first 3D structure. So, without revealing too much, it's ice related. It's a kinetic sculpture with a sound element to it, and it's in 3D. So um, I'm happy to have the opportunity to explore in that realm. The images are all based around the idea of garden and gardening as an expression of art. Um, yeah, so I'd love if you come out and to check that out. Um, when I said I was going to be doing this talk, I asked friends, what would you be interested in knowing about my artist practice? And they came back with a number of interesting um, questions that I just thought I'd throw them out there just to get things going with the questions from you. But let's at least delve into this first one, and then I'll check what how much time I have left. So one of the questions that came out is how do you address the sustainability in your art practice? When I think about sustainability, that is in two realms. One, ecologically speaking, and then as a lifestyle sort of sustainability. So for ecological, um, I try to be conscious about what materials I'm using and the amount of waste that I might create when I am creating. For instance, in this art show, I needed something that had a plastic element to it in order to package something. And while I explored as an option biodegradable plastics, um, it just didn't seem like it's where that technology is where it should be. Also, I found out that I don't think that the BC waste system is able to provide the correct conditions for the biodegradable plastic to actually biodegrade as fast as it should. So, as an alternative, I decided to reuse plastic. So I collected plastic bags from different things and I cut them up to provide packaging. So things like that. Also would be people have said that, oh, why don't you use maybe resin? That my work might be something that would look great in resin. And I've always shied away from that because that is a petroleum product. And I'm like, it's just not, it just kind of feels that it's not where I want to go if I'm trying to address sustainability. And on the other hand, I guess sustainability would be balancing my life with my art practice. I'm sorry, I need water again. I'm working freelance, but a lot of the time, so I have to make a concerted effort to not overwork myself. I know that maybe if I was doing art full time, I'd be able to progress a lot faster, but I have to take things in stride, make time for self care, make time for communing with my friends and other things that are also like valuable in my life. So that's how I address that. I'm wondering how much time I have left.
You're good if you have more slides, or did you
I
want
have
me
other questions that I can answer, but I can also field questions from everyone else.
um, up to you. We've got 15 minutes minimum.
15 minutes. Oh, okay. Okay. Yes. All right. We'll continue then. What is something that's really helped you progress as an artist? Mm. One thing that really comes to mind is get yourself a mentor. I happened to come across, on Instagram that my alma mater, at Sheridan College, there was someone there in the photography program that was setting up a program. It was 3 years ago now for BIPOC photographers to provide mentors for them. So um, I paired with one, Kristen Sharja. She is an artist who also works in florals. They are She's Dutch and she has Dutch heritage and she does these beautiful bouquets that she photographs in a Dutch master's style. And um, she was like the very first year, so 2021, she was my mentor. And I found that those questions that I had about things like an artist statement, different types of galleries, whether framing, like all sort of things, it's really nice to have someone who knows already what they're doing to provide you maybe like a little shortcut or some sort of advice, because like the road can be very hard and there are lots of different things, lots of questions. So advice from people who have already been there has has been invaluable. And then I thought, okay, I've had one mentor and that's probably enough. I don't want to like be piggish, but then they wrote to me and said, no, no, the whole program is meant that you come back as many times as you want. If you want another mentor, come, yeah, please join, apply, and ask. So my second mentor was last year, and I chose her because she works in Ontario, so it'd be good to have that contact, but also in public art and in writing grant applications. So she helped me through my grant applications, and we had lots of great discussions about producing public art, about working with foundries. Um, yeah, like I said, it's great to have someone in your corner who can see you through a number of things for a few months of your practice. Um, yeah, get if you can get a mentor, get a mentor. Okay, outside of nature, what inspires your art? So many things. I love science and technological advancements, other artists, um, media, film, even just like things like the lighting techniques of certain films in my opening my next show that I'm doing. I have used different lights that were inspired by other people's lighting techniques. So um yeah, podcasts, different subjects, like I'll listen to a science a science podcast and be inspired to go and take a look at a particular type of plant and group plants together in my ice tiles to have a story that's under the story of what you see. um, how do you know when an artwork is complete? Um, my strategy is I'll have an idea, I will shoot it, and then I go in a cycle of three. So even if like I shoot it and I take it to my computer and I'm just like I'm happy with that, I'll still go back two more times to shoot it with like to either try to improve, maybe add or take plants away when necessary, and also choose different gels colors to um, to try to achieve like maybe a different look. And sometimes I'm surprised by what happens, and I'm like, no, I thought this was good, but this is way better on the third try. So um, I usually shoot it and just push past where I think I might and just see if something works. And if not, I'll settle with what I'm happy with already. How do you promote your art practice? Um, Through Instagram and networking and applying for art calls. And my thought is that although I want to show in Ontario, in Vancouver, I also want to show, if possible, eventually abroad. And to grow things, you have to get your name out there. And even if you don't succeed in an art call, you never know who's looking at your work. It's always a good idea when you are applying for something to see who's participating and see, like, are there people whose work maybe resonates with you, or you think that they might be interested in your work as a juror, because you never know, they might reach out for other things. That's how I ended up being involved with the Prix Pictet, is that I applied for a lens culture competition, and I guess this woman was one of the judges and recommended me to be nominated to participate in this program. And while I did not place, I was able to get. They chose me to put some of my photography in their art book. So and that book was going around the world. So, you never know. So just apply, apply, apply. And even without success, you might still have some sort of success. Um, what would you like to happen in the near future? I would love to do a residency. A lot of what I do happens like alone, and I would love to be in a residency that is in a completely, maybe a different country, or just a very different environment where I'm exposed to other artists who, like, I barely collaborate, and I'd love to either collaborate or just be in an area where I can brush up against other artists, because you never know what can percolate from those interactions. And yeah, that is my presentation. I would love to hear any other comments from or questions from you out there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cherry. That was awesome. I loved the details of your process. Like you really gave us from the beginning to where you are now. I love it. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
And I can tell that other people agree with all the hearts going on in the background and even some of the comments of people saying great presentations. So thank you. We do have some questions.
Thank you.
So we'll start with those, and we might get a few more as we start going. Susan did also say great presentation. Have you figured out
Thank
what
you.
to do with the images on PVC once they come down?
Yes. So the ones from the transit are sitting under my couch right now. I had this I'm going to hold on to them. We'll see what happens. I wanted to put them up in one on one of the walls, and then I realized that at least in this room, it's better when people come to visit that I have a white space for showing my artwork, like for gallery visits, that sort of thing. Um, would maybe like to pick a different wall in my place, maybe my bedroom or something, and hang it with magnets because it's quite a big piece. So, yeah. And then you never know. I had the opportunity to collect them, and I just thought I'm going to take them. If I don't end up using them, fine. Um, I also, thought maybe I could cut them apart and possibly use them for a sculpture at some time. So, yeah, I'm not a pack rat, but sometimes I hold on to things thinking like, yeah, there could be something there later on. So yeah. Oh,
When you
and
say
the other PVC pieces at at PCI. Well, one, they've been outside exposed to the elements for quite some time, so they would be kind of dirty and probably decaying a little bit, but they weren't mine to keep. Like they're theirs. So yeah.
And when you say big, like how big are we talking? Like what's the average size of one of those?
So about um okay, I forget the actual ones, but it was like I'm about 5'5", so about 6 feet tall, and about 12 feet wide.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's very big.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I can see if you start doing more of those, so storage might become a problem, but
Yes.
but at least they can be flat. So
Uh-huh.
another question from Valerie. What does biophilia mean in terms of your art making?
Okay. Um, my art is all about communing with nature, and biophilia is humanity's natural attraction to nature. So, um, yeah, I guess it's the starting point of everything that I do.
Great. And someone's asking if you do privately commissioned pieces. I think Sharon is looking for one.
Um, Privately, I haven't been approached for any yet. It's something that I would explore. Yeah, why not?
Great. Another question is, do you work with digital editing or camera work the most to create your vision?
Uh, Both. I try to keep digital editing to a minimum. So most of it's happening by the way I place the camera by zooming in or stepping out, and also the direction of the lights. Like sometimes I want to cast actual shadows across it to have something that's very moody. Um, for um, digital editing, I just sometimes sharpen colors. I think only in one image have I changed an actual color, but more so it's just sharpening and working on things like saturation and that.
I mean, that relates to a question I had just about when you were talking about the public art pieces you did and
Hmm.
having to adjust for the site
Hmm.
or the material. Um,
Yes.
how, I guess, how do you test that? Like, how did you know it was going to be too dark, or did they just tell you this is going to be too dark for our space? And then how
No, I
much
think the
time would they
what.
give you to get that done,
Uh-huh.
basically?
Uh-huh. Well, I always insist on having proofs because there's no way, like when I send it out to print, I don't know for sure what it's going to look like until I see it. So yeah, I asked for proofs. So they sent me on both occasions. They sent me proofs, and the alterations is just that the coloring was too dark, so I just needed to lighten them more than I typically would. But yeah,
Right.
yeah, I couldn't
Um,
imagine, like, getting it all printed and not being happy with it, so, yeah,
yes,
proofs are essential.
of course. And I'm just sort of curious more about the public art um, process. So, like, do
Mhm,
they kind of help you along with that and give you printers or like where to go, or how
mhm,
much involvement would whoever's commissioning you for that
uh-huh.
give to you?
I understand everything would, from different situation to situation would be different, but mostly, or for all of the instances so far for me, they've already had people that they deal with,
Mm.
so that was all lined up. They said, "Are you interested? Here's our printer. Let him send or her send you what you need and all the specs for it, and then the two of us kind of make things work." And they've been all fantastic printers. So actually, one of them I've worked with, like, it's my third, fourth time working with this person because of this. So yeah.
Great, great. Um, Another question was just about, have you created a piece using the spectacular mushrooms we have popping up everywhere right now?
Uh, um, I have, and I want to revisit mushrooms because the first year I had shot some amanitas, and you can tell like my style has definitely changed, but those were really fun. And I had the idea the following year to try to see if I could capture spore prints on the ice, but I never got back to that. So yeah, but I've been out like mushroom foraging for edibles a couple times this year already. So they tend to end up on my plate more than they do my artwork. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I need to get some more mushrooms in there and see how they work. And I would imagine just like florals that some of them might hold up better than others in the ice. But the amanitas, they stayed nice bright red, and they didn't like get, you know, it didn't alter the way they looked at all. So yeah, I'd like to get more mushrooms in the mix.
I'm curious about your process. I mean, you don't have to give it all away, but just in terms of like how long does it take for you to set up and like how getting the ice together and getting
Uh-huh.
everything prepared, like how long is that whole process?
Uh-huh. I would say, like, if I'm not pushing things, probably about a week, because you think I've got to go out, and sometimes I go out with a mission, and other times I go out and things catch my eye, and then it sort of inspires what I'm making. Um, yeah, I have to leave the house, go find something or grow it or whatever. So sometimes you just have to wait till the time of the year. Like um, certain plants, flowers from certain plants, I could only get at a certain time of the year. So in that case, it's just like waiting until you know for that to actually happen. And then if I have the time, usually the next day is when I'll start freezing things. Freezing is about 24 to 48 hours, only because I have to, like, first I have to anchor them down. So that's putting them down, the first layer, and misting it so that it stays in place. And then you can add water. Otherwise, it just floats to the top, right? And then each time it freezes, then you put another layer and another layer. I don't usually like the it might be misleading, but it's really only like about 20 by let's say 20 by 30 centimeters. Is that right? It's about the size, about twice the size of like a regular sheet of paper, I guess. And then uh, the maximum would be about 2 inches because the light has to be able to come through it too. And if there's too many plants and too much solid ice, then it just doesn't capture as much magic, let's say.
Right, right. Which leads to another question from someone is, how big is your art freezer?
It's half of my home freezer, so I only have, like, the upper chest, and, the maximum I could do at any time, unless I empty the freezer entirely, is 4, and I usually do 3 because then it just takes too long to freeze them if I'm doing them all at the same time. Yeah, the more that's in it, the slower the process. So, yeah. So half of that, in 2022, I did a project that was for Burnaby Blooms, and it was a larger piece. So I got a freezer, like I not rented, someone lent me a freezer, which was incredibly generous. I just had to pay for the delivery of it. And that was like a big chest. So I had bigger pieces in there, and I was able to do quite a few at the same time. But no, it's a slower process. If I don't have anything, I'm pretty good at like scheduling my time, so I'm not like really pressed at the last minute because it does take time, and I don't like to have to rush it. So yeah, I just know how long it takes, and like I'll just do maybe a couple at a time to try to freeze them, and then I'm photographing those while I'm trying to freeze other ones. So yeah.
Mhm. Another question came from Kelly. Do you pre-visualize each tile before you create them, or do you gather materials and create as you go?
A bit of both. Yeah. Um, the ones that I visualize, it's like if there is a specific thing that I'm trying, like if there's a theme specifically that I'm trying to work with, then I will gather specific things. Or um, like I like to revisit ideas that I've tried once, and sometimes I fail, or I'll see them in new light, maybe a year later. I'm like, I'm going to try this again. I want to try it just a different way. So regather everything. But a lot of things are, I might have an idea, and I have certain plants, and I also dry some plants too, like things like pods and roots and that. They survive. Mosses are really great. You can use them over or just dry them. So sometimes it's like fresh things and rehydrated things, and I've started like boiling things every now and then to get them soft again. So yeah, it's a bit of both.
And I assume a lot of experimentation to figure that
Yes,
out.
yeah. But the good thing about that is you start to learn how a plant will react. Like when I'm making the sculpture for this show, I know certain ones that I wouldn't dare put in there because they lose their color straight away in the ice, right? So, yeah.
Right. No more questions, but a lot of comments. So I can
Okay.
just let you know a few of them. One, someone mentioned, Cherry, there is a year-long residency in Finland. So if you're interested in looking
Ah,
at
going back to Finland. Yes, I would say
that.
yes.
And
Please tell me more.
so Andrea, I can put you in contact with Cherry at some point
Okay.
about that one. Um, someone else was saying thank you, and it was a great idea about using magnets to hang up those very large pieces. Magnets are
Mhm.
always great. I know we have a lot of them actually right now in the gallery.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then, yes, just a lot of thank yous and lovely to hear about your experience. I mean, I do think it was such a great arc that you shared with us from the beginning, of
Mhm.
how you worked through different things you've tried and different things you're doing now and all the different sort of avenues you're taking your artwork. It was just really,
Mhm.
really interesting and also I think really inspiring for a lot of artists. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's excellent. I'm happy to
Yeah.
have these responses.
So yes, thank you everyone out there. I think since we're just a bit after 8 o'clock, we'll close for tonight. Thank you so much, Cherry, again. That was a really great presentation. Another big shout out to Public Art for supporting the event, supporting the salon. We'll be back next month for hybrid session, which will be in person and online. So hopefully I will see you again next month,
Okay.
either on the computer or in person. You can always come visit us. I did want to mention another reason we looked at Cherry for this month was because she tied in so nicely with our current exhibition, Foodways, which is all about food. And Cherry's artwork just like was right in there with the theme. So if you do get a chance, the show just opened last weekend. Come out and check out the 11 different artists all looking at different ways of looking at food. So thank you again, everyone out there online. I appreciate your support. Cherry, awesome talk. Thank you so much.
And
Uh,
thank you so much for inviting me. That was so amazing. Thank you.
all right. Well, take care, everyone. Have a good night.